The pain I never spoke about shaped who I am. For most of my life, I believed that staying silent made me strong. If I worked hard, ignored my feelings, and kept moving forward, everything would be fine. But now, at 70, I understand something very different. Silence does not remove pain. It only hides it. And over time it quietly changes your life. My name is Thomas. I am 70 years old, and I live alone in a small house. The days are quiet now. Sometimes I sit near the window and watch people walking outside, families talking, children laughing, couples sharing small moments. I watch them and I think about my own life, about the choices I made, and about the things I never said. I was not always an old man filled with memories. Once, I was a boy with dreams. I grew up in a small town. My father worked long hours in a factory, and my mother took care of the home. We did not have much money, but we had enough to live. Life was simple, but there was always a sense of worry in the house. Bills, work, and responsibilities were always on my parents' minds. In our home, people did not talk much about feelings. When something was wrong, it was handled quietly. I remember one evening when my father came home after losing his job. He sat at the table in silence. My mother did not ask questions. No one cried. No one spoke. The room felt heavy but silent. That night I learned something without anyone teaching me. Pain should be hidden. As a child, I followed that rule. If I felt sad, I stayed quiet. If I felt afraid, I kept it inside. I thought that was what being strong meant. Years passed, and I grew older. By the time I reached my early 20s, I had only one goal: to escape the struggles of my childhood. I wanted a better life, a stable job, and financial security. I believed money would solve most problems, so I worked hard, very hard. I took every opportunity I could find. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs at once. I rarely rested. I rarely spent time with friends. When people invited me to gatherings or celebrations, I often refused. I told myself I was busy building my future. I believed there would always be time later to enjoy life. In my late 20s, I met a woman named Laura. She had a warm smile and a calm voice. She listened carefully when I spoke, and she understood me in a way few people ever had. She used to tell me, "Life is not only about work. You need time to live." But I did not listen. I cared about her, but I kept putting work first. I postponed dinners, canceled plans, and told her things would be different once I reached my goals. One evening, she looked at me and said quietly, "I feel alone, even when you are here." At the time I did not understand those words. I thought love meant providing, working, and building a secure future. But she needed my time, my attention, and my presence. A year later, she left. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself I needed to stay focused. But deep inside, there was a pain I never spoke about. And like every other pain in my life, I buried it and moved forward. By the time I reached my 40s, I had achieved what many people called success. I had a stable job, a comfortable home, and the respect of others. People often said, "You've done well for yourself." But every evening, when I returned home, the silence greeted me. No laughter, no conversation, just quiet rooms. At first, I told myself I enjoyed the peace. But over time, the silence felt heavier. I began to realize that success, without people to share it with, feels empty. Still, I kept living the same way. I was used to silence. I was used to carrying everything alone. Then came the years when my parents grew older. I visited them sometimes, but not as often as I should have. There was always work, always responsibilities, always something more important, or so I believed. I kept telling myself, I'll visit next week. One day, I received a phone call. My mother had passed away. I remember sitting in my car after the call, staring at nothing. My mind was filled with memories, moments I could have visited, conversations I could have had, words I never said. That was the first time I truly understood how fast time moves. Life continued, but something inside me had changed. I began to see my life more clearly. I began to understand that many of the things I thought were important were not as important as I believed. When I turned 60, I started noticing changes in my body. My energy was lower. Small tasks felt heavier. Some of my friends retired. Others became ill. A few passed away. Attending funerals changes the way you think about time. You begin to realize that life is not as long as it once seemed. Now, at 70, my life is quiet and simple. I wake up early, make tea, and sit by the window. I think about the boy. I once was the boy who believed he had endless time. If I could speak to him now, I would tell him many things. I would tell him that talking about pain does not make you weak. It makes you human. I would tell him that money is important, but it cannot replace time with the people you love. I would tell him that relationships need attention, care, and presence. Love does not survive on promises of later. I would tell him to take care of his health, because one day his body will remind him of every year he ignored it. I would tell him to slow down, to sit with his parents, to listen to their stories, to laugh with friends, and to live in the present instead of always chasing the future. Most of all, I would tell him that silence is not strength. True strength is being honest about your feelings, your fears, and your pain. The pain I never spoke about shaped who I am. It shaped my choices, my relationships, and the life I built. Some lessons in life come too late, but they are still worth sharing. So if you are young and listening to this, remember one thing: do not wait too long to live your life. Do not wait too long to love people. Do not wait too long to speak what is in your heart. Because one day, you may look back, like I do now, and realize that time was the most valuable thing you ever had. And it passed quietly, while you were busy planning for tomorrow.